All right, we're gonna do a little bit of a throwback and do a tutorial on how to paint. One of the paintings we're gonna do this floral painting that's been really popular. It's on a black canvas. These black canvases can be purchased. I think Hobby Lobby has them. I got these from Michael's. They're already painted for us, and we're gonna use 6 colors. So we have white, yellow, orange, red, an island blue, and a green. And so these are all Crafters collection. It's the craft paint that you can get at Hobby Lobby. I would recommend using the craft paint more because some of the colors, especially this blue and the yellow, have a little bit of white in them. And that white is what makes it pop off of the back of the black canvas. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my white paint, I'm gonna roll it in my pointer brush. So I just have a number 8 or 10 or even a 12 would be fine for a pointer brush. I'm rolling it in the white paint and I'm gonna come up to the top left corner. I'm about 3 inches down from the top left, about 2 inches in, and I'm just gonna give myself a center. I'm gonna stick in these first 4 kind of, I call them like the original flowers. They're like the normal looking flowers. So we're gonna stick one center over on the left-hand side. We're gonna come over to the right. We're gonna go lower and in just a little bit more and stick a second center. We're gonna stick another flower over there. We're gonna go directly underneath it, down towards the corner, and I'm gonna tuck it in just a little bit in the corner. We're gonna go ahead and get a third center. I'm gonna grab a little bit more paint, and I'm gonna put my third one in, or my fourth one in. The fourth one is gonna come down here. He's gonna be taller than the bottom guy, and he's gonna be over from the left of the guy up in the top right corner. And I'm just gonna stick my center in. All of these centers are gonna become our flowers. And the way that we're gonna create our flowers is we're gonna put petals on them. And the petal that I'm gonna stick on is going to have 6 petals. Every petal comes out, sort of has this U-shape bend to it on the outside. And I'm gonna try to unattach it. So that means that I'm not getting it attached to my center. I'm leaving that black kind of show through. If we do accidentally attach it, we can always take black at the end and kind of go back through and make it more defined. But I'm gonna try really hard to get my 6 in. If we only get 5, then we're gonna kind of roll with the 5, and then the rest of them will probably have about 5 too. But I'm going through, I'm trying to get my 6 in. Once I have my 6, if that center needs to become just a little bit bigger, we can make it a little bit larger. But I want to do this to all 4 of my centers. So I'm gonna create my petals, my little bunny ears, my little loops on the outside. And again, if we get, like, it might be a little bit too fat to get my 6th one in here, I maybe can pull this one over a little bit, sneak in my 5th one, and then barely get my 6th one so that they match together. I'm gonna make my center just a little bit bigger. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that to the bottom too as well. So what we're doing right now is we're painting it with white. We're painting it with white because we're underpainting it so that when we go back through later with the color, it'll be nice and bright. And so I'm not worried about it being so much like a pure white. I wanna make sure that where I'm putting my brush strokes at, it's like a pathway for when I go to put on the color later on. And I'm worried about more just my placement. And I'm trying to get my 6 petals. Even if one of the petals gets a little bit bigger, kind of adjust it so he looks like he belongs. They all should look like they're part of the same family. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my 4th one at the bottom. Once I have my 4th one done, that's my first set of, I say, normal flowers. They're gonna eventually get color added to them. Once I have my normal flowers in, I can go ahead and stick in my group of 3 that are just smaller versions of this. In my group of 3, the first one is gonna be in the middle of the canvas from top to bottom. I'm in the center, and I'm in the center from left to right. I'm right dead in the middle. I'm gonna go ahead and give myself a little dot. He's gonna be the center of my top flower, and I'm gonna drop and do a second center over on the right, and I kind of put in one in between the 2 on the left. And what these guys are, they're gonna be the same thing that we just did. They're just tinier. And so if we need to switch down to a smaller brush to do it, like if the other one maybe was a little bit too large, we can switch down, but I'm trying to mimic that same style of the 6 petals coming out of the center. Did I do 7? I did do 7. We're gonna go ahead and try to get the same here so that they all belong together. And I'll get my last one. And so these guys are gonna end up staying white. And so after you've gone through once, if you need to go through a second time to get kind of another coat on, we can do that. I did get a 7th petal right there. We're just gonna leave him, let him be. And I'm just getting a second coat on all of those guys. They're gonna be this sort of central grouping in the middle. After I get them in, I'm gonna move right into my flowers that are sideways. So these guys, there's 3 of them. They're filling up space where we have room. And so we have room up here in this diagonal. What I'm gonna do to create is I'm gonna create my center with a diagonal line. Once I have the diagonal line, I'm gonna make him look like a football shape. And so I can go ahead and get him to be more football shaped. From the football shape, I can bring out the petals. The petals on this guy, the first one that I'm gonna bring out is I'm gonna go from my football shape, I'm gonna come perpendicular, kind of straight out from it, so it creates like a T shape. And I want these petals to be longer and skinny at the beginning, kind of fat at the end. And so as I pull that out, gravity's starting to take it a little bit. And so as I come to do my next petal above it, gravity's pulling it just a little bit. It kind of has a little bit of a droop to it. I'm trying to keep everything separated, just like I did before. So as I'm adding in my next petal, I don't want it to necessarily touch the center or the bottom. And I'm gonna shoot for 3 on each side. So I got 2 right now. I'm gonna go ahead and put my 3rd one in. And my 3rd one, he's really coming out of the edge, the side, and he's falling. Gravity's making him fall as he comes through. And so once I get one side done, I can switch over to the other side. I'm gonna kind of flip which way that they're falling. Gravity's taking them this way now. And I got 2, I'm gonna get my 3rd one in. Again, he has a little bit more of the most curve to him. And then he's gonna go ahead and be completed. Once we get our first one in, we can come over to the second one. Our second one's gonna come over here on the right-hand side. He can also start as a dash, as a diagonal, and then he's gonna turn into a football shape. Once he turns into a football shape, we're gonna put our first perpendicular petal in, trying to keep him so he's nice and fat at the end, skinny at the beginning. I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. So I'm gonna come out 3 times. This is the first, this is the second, and this is the 3rd. And so every time that I come out, gravity is taking that petal and kind of making it fall just a little bit more. I'm gonna go down to the other side and do the same thing, trying to keep it skinny-ish at the beginning and fat at the end. And again, if we do touch the other stuff, it's no big deal. We can always come back through and break it up later on. But we're gonna do our 3rd sideways flower over on the left-hand side. And I'm just gonna drop it so that it's coming just a little bit lower than that second one. And I wanna make sure that I'm over on the left-hand side of that first one. And I'm going to create less of a diagonal with this one. So it's a little bit of an angle, but not much on its dash. And then I'm gonna turn him into a football. So I got the bottom and the top shape. Once I have my shape, then I'm creating that perpendicular line that's coming straight out of it, teeing out of it. And I'm doing the same thing I did with all the other ones. I'm coming out, making the petal so that it's skinny at the beginning, fat at the end. I'm gonna do that 3 more times, coming out. If you're ever having trouble with your brush kind of staying together, take it and roll it into the paint. Take it and roll it into the paint to try to get the bristles to kind of stick into a finer point. And we're gonna go ahead and go to the other side and complete the other 3. Gravity's taking them as they come out. And we're gonna get our last one. And so we got our 3 sideways flowers in. Once we have our 3 sideways flowers in, we have to put in our flowers that aren't quite opened yet. And so we're still gonna use white to create them first. And what they're gonna do is they're gonna have, like, I call it a little hat. We're gonna come over in this space and we're gonna put a dash. That's what's gonna sit on the petals. The petal's gonna sit on that. And I'm gonna pull out a line. From my line, I want them to be wider at the top and come back to be skinny, kind of like an exclamation mark. And so once I get the first line in, I'm gonna come over to the left and I'm gonna create a shorter one. And I'm gonna come over to the right and I'm gonna create an even shorter one, so that it sort of looks like our petals, they're coming out, but they're not quite opened up yet. And so they are sitting on this sort of hat. And what's gonna happen is as we keep creating them, and I come down and I create another one, they're going to kind of flip the direction that they are. So once I have my hat, instead of going inward, I'm gonna go outward with my line. So I have my line and then I have my little hat that's going out to the left. He's gonna go ahead and have that kind of exclamation mark of being fat to skinny. And then I can go ahead and do my second one on the other side. So they're sort of facing each other. And so that means that when I go to put the third one in down here at the bottom, I'm gonna go the other way. So I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna start to face out to the right, create my exclamation, and I can go ahead and put the little guy on the other side. And so where we had 3 at the beginning, on the left, we went into 2 for the middle ones. And we're gonna go back to 3 to kind of fill it out on the right-hand side. And so I'm coming over to the right. I'm coming just a little bit higher than the guy on the left did. I'm gonna go ahead and put my hat, create my top one. It's kind of wider. He's again facing back inward towards the middle. And then get the third one on at the end. Once we get all 3 of those in, we're gonna come into our teardrop flowers. And so because our teardrop flowers sort of break this space up, we do need to create a line. And so the line that's going to be created is coming through here on this right-hand side. It's coming in between our flowers and I'm sort of curving him so he's not gonna fight with either of these 2 flowers. We don't have to go through and make it perfect. I just have a sort of a guideline down right now. Once I have my guideline in, then I can start to create my teardrops, which are just coming off of the line kind of at a stair step. And so as I put it in, I'm kind of pushing down on the bottom of my brush so that it does get a little bit fatter. I'm gonna keep doing this. So as I continue to come down, I'm gonna stair step them and they're just sort of gonna alternate as they're coming down. I wanna get like 7 or 6 on each side so that they're taking up a good amount of space. Again, if we're losing on paint, we're just rolling it in the brush, rolling it in our brush in the paint. Then I'm gonna keep working to fill up all of this space. I'm gonna go ahead and get one more on this side. I have room for it. And then I'll be able to kind of finish out. And these are our teardrop ones that are going through the middle. That's the last flower that we have to create. We're gonna do one more step with white before we bring into the color. And what we're gonna do with the white is we're gonna create our moon. We're gonna create our moon up towards the top. I'm kind of in between my flowers. I'm up here. I'm still about 2 inches from the top, maybe about 4 inches over from the side. And my goal is first to create sort of this half circle, the best half circle that I can get with my brush. And then once I have the half circle, then I can figure out, okay, well, do I need to go a little bit wider to get it to be more circular out here? Once I have that circular on the outside, then I can worry about trying to get the tail. And so the tail's the crescent part, the edge of the moon. So I'm gonna try to keep it nice and skinny by keeping it skinny at the beginning. And then as it comes through and gets a little bit fatter into the middle, we're keeping that round shape through it. And again, if it gets too wide, we couldn't bring black into it. The black's gonna be just a little bit of a different color than the canvas. And so it'd probably be better either just have a really fat crescent moon, or you could end up with a full moon, which is, there's nothing wrong with having a full moon. And so once we get our moon in, we are gonna switch away from the white. We're gonna start to add color to our flowers. And I'm gonna do that by taking a little bit of red, and I'm taking the red into a section of my white, and I'm darkening it up. Not darkening it up, I'm lightening it up. I'm turning it into like a pink. And so this is where I can decide, maybe I want it to be a little bit darker of pink, I can add more red into this color. And I'm gonna go right back to where I started, and I'm gonna add my paint right back through my original first flower that I did. And so I'm coming in, I'm painting my petals. I'm gonna get all of them with my pink. Once I have my pink added in, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna kind of keep this color. I could lighten it or darken it, but I'm gonna kind of keep about the same color that I have. And I'm gonna bring it down to the bottom, and I'm gonna go ahead and do my bottom normal flower with the same color. So they sort of match up from the top corner and the bottom corner. I'm getting through all of my petals. Once I have these two petals painted, I'm gonna lighten up my pink to do the other two. So I sort of have this darker pink on the bottom corner, both corners. I'm gonna just bring more white into it. So see how it's starting to lighten it up? Once I have that lighter pink, I can come back through and add a second coat. And this is why we didn't have to worry about the white so much, because there's so much white in this color. As we put the second coat in, sort of makes it look nice and solid. And so I'm gonna go ahead and paint this guy. I'm gonna use that same color, come up to my other regular flower. Remember, these are the first 4 that we created. I'm gonna go ahead and get a coat on it. And then once we have our pink on all of these first 4 flowers, I'm gonna take red, so I'm just taking a little bit of red on the end of my brush, and I'm gonna pull little lines out from the middle of my flower. And so these are just little kind of like contrast, like little accents. And I'll show you up here. So I'm just coming from the center, and I'm just very lightly pulling. If it dries a little bit more, they're gonna be more distinct. But with it being still a little bit wet, it can kind of blend, but you can see they're starting to pull these little lines out. If red seems too much, we can always do it with a lighter pink. And so I think red might be a little bit too much for these light pink ones. So I did add a little bit of white back into it, so it's more of like a dark pink. I'm gonna go ahead and brush out the middle. And get all of those normal flowers with accent lines now. And so I'm gonna come back to my paint. I'm gonna add more white to it. I want a really light pink, no lighter pink than I had before. And with this light pink, I'm gonna come back to my sideways flower, my top one, and I'm gonna brush in this light pink. So I'm coming through every petal, getting basically a second coat on it. Now I'm adding the color, and I'm gonna go lighter up here. And so once I get my light pink on this top flower, I'm gonna come down to the bottom left and do the same thing. So I'm gonna have light pink through these petals. Gonna get all 7 of them painted, all these petals down here with the light pink. Once I have my light pink in, I'm gonna come back to my right hand side one. I'm gonna go back dark, and I'm actually gonna take more of like a pure red. I already have some white on my brush just from painting that pink. I'm gonna leave it in, I'm not gonna wipe it out. So that it can come through if it wants to come through, but I'm just taking straight red and coming back into each petal and painting through to add my colors. You can see some of that white's kind of coming through. Gives it just a little bit more of a contrast. And I'm gonna paint my last petal. Once I get done with these petals, I'm gonna keep this red paint, and I'm gonna come back to each center on my sideways one. So all my football shapes are gonna get this red painted through every one of these centers for my football, for all my sideway ones. And so once I get them painted, I have to add my accent. And so the accent now is either going to be lighter or darker. I can either take like a darker pink than what I used and come through and kind of brush in a little bit of darkness on my petals. Just like through here, I can come on the inside of each one of them. I have just a little bit of red in my pink and kind of brush that through. Or I could take a lighter color, so kind of like a lighter pink, and I could do the same thing to this darker one. You could go through, kind of brush it in so that we have different colors coming into our petals. I'm taking that light pink and I'm going to kind of dot it up and down through the centers, through my footballs, to give it a little bit of texture. So you can see that as I'm dotting it, it's giving it just a little bit of texture into the middle of it. And that's going to kind of finish out my sideways flowers. I can go back now. This is where I am going to actually pinch it out. I'm pinching out my paint on a little paint rag, because to finish out my flowers, I'm going to come into my teardrop and I'm going to take yellow and I'm going to start to mix it into some of the orange. So I wanted to get that red out of there. So I'm taking a little bit of yellow and orange together, mixing them in to get my yellow orange. And I'm going to come back into my teardrop shape and I'm painting right back through it. So the more yellow I add, it actually become a little bit brighter. If it's not, if it's still kind of see-through, which these two colors are pretty see-through, we could add a little bit of white to it to make it a little bit more opaque. So it covers a little bit more like our pink might have. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint through all of my teardrops. My white's a little bit wet still, and that's why it's kind of pulling, which I can always add in a third coat if I need to later on. But I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of them. Get all of these guys painted. Once we have these guys painted, I'm actually going to, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to kind of pinch out the excess paint, and I'm going to go back to yellow. So I put yellow back on the brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and get my centers of my three flowers kind of in the center. So I can get the centers of them all painted in yellow. Now that I have a little bit of yellow in my brush, I'm going to come over and I'm going to do my last 4 flowers, which actually are going to have orange and red mixed into them. So even though I had yellow on the brush, it's not going to do any harm. I'm going to go right into my orange and mix some of the red into it so that I get more a different type of red from my sideways flowers. And with this red, this orange red, I'm going to go back in and paint through all of my flowers that aren't quite bloomed yet. And so I don't need to paint the hat part of it. That's going to be green. I'm just painting all of my petals. And so because we underpainted it, we painted it white first. It should be nice and bright. Red is a pretty translucent color, so you can see, like, if I don't quite get over top of the white, you don't really see it as much because it's that white that's making it nice and bright. Once we get all the red painted through, we are done painting the flowers. We're going to take that brush, pinch out the paint. If you have water, you could kind of completely clean it out if you wanted to, because we are switching over into the greenery. And so with the greenery, the first thing that I'm going to worry about is these big sort of leaves that are taking up in the space down here. I'm going to take some yellow and I'm going to move it over near my green, and I'm going to lighten up my green by moving just a tiny bit of that green into my yellow to get this nice bright green color. With my bright green, I'm going to come in and I'm going to create sort of a pathway for these guys, because all the greenery is doing is it's filling space. The first space that I want to fill up is I want to cut across down here in the bottom corner of the canvas. The second space that I want to kind of come into is this space over here on the right. And so I just created 2 lines down at the bottom to kind of break that up. Once I have that space broken up, then I can worry about bringing in my leaves. And my leaves that are coming off of this, they are like long football shapes. And so as I'm pulling it out, they kind of match up on each side. I'm pulling it out, I'm brushing it through, I'm letting it go from thin to thick to thin again. And as I keep adding each one, my goal is to not overlap. And so that means if something's in the way, I'm gonna sort of adjust where I'm putting that leaf at. And so as I come up here, and this is kind of in that space, I'm just gonna make him so that he's more up and down. And he's kind of fitting himself in where we have space. Same with this one. So he's just gonna become a little bit more up and down because I'm running into that other flower. And then as I come up, these guys are gonna just continue to get a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter. And I think I can do maybe one more set on each side. Once I have all the sets done and I'm ready to kind of end it, then I'm gonna put the guy on at the end, which is just more of a straight up and down leaf. Once I have one side done, I can move over to the right and I can actually check. I have a little bit of space right here. I'm gonna go ahead and add another one down here at the bottom that sort of goes off the edge of the canvas. And I could wrap it around on the bottom if I wanted to, so it's fully painted. I'm gonna kind of leave it how it is, and I'm gonna come over to the right, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did on the other side. I'm gonna start with my leaves. Once I have my leaves in, I'm gonna keep adding them in, and I'm adjusting them how I need to. So I have a little bit less space over here than maybe I do in my example photo. And so these guys are gonna end up getting a little bit more vertical, a little bit faster. And we can always make them smaller too, if we don't have quite the room. And so this one, I have stem room, but I don't have necessarily room on the left and on the right. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of finish it off and add my guy in through the middle. And so these two are taking up a lot of space. That's what they're there for. The second thing that I wanna do to kind of fill up space and create different texture is those cattail looking things. They're going to be done by taking a little bit of blue and mixing it in with our color. And so the color that I already have mixed, I'm gonna take a little bit of blue, I'm adding it to it. It's gonna lighten it up, kind of make it more of a blue-green. And with my blue-green now, I'm gonna come in and I wanna break up some of these big sections with this texture. And so what this texture is it's my brush set on the side, on one side, and then I'm flipping it over and I'm doing the same thing on the other, to create sort of this, I call it like a tire mark. And so these are coming in and they're coming in and breaking up some of the space. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do another one over here on the right. And if we can't set it, you could also pull just a little line out. So I'm just pulling a little dash and another little dash and another little dash, and they're sitting right on top of each other. And then we're getting this sort of V shape by doing it on the other side. And again, I don't want to run into anything with that. And so I'm being conscious about the space that I have to fill it in. I want it to sort of be creating this motion going inward. And so I'm gonna have room to do another one over here at the bottom. It's just coming from the corner, and as it's coming in, it's working its way towards the middle. And I maybe get one more over here, over from the right hand side. I got a little bit more room, maybe a little bit bigger. But they're just different texture that's coming into the canvas. And so once I have them in, I'd probably, if I wanted to, I could add a fifth one in. I don't think I have quite the same amount of room down here as I do in my example. So I'm gonna leave it out. And now I'm going to go back to sort of my blue color, and I'm gonna worry about the next step, which is making sure these three guys are attached to each other. And so I'm bringing a stem in to make them so that they're all together. I'm gonna kind of bring this stem down, and from this stem, they get to have their little leaves coming out, and they're just nice and skinny. I'm just pulling out a little bit of a line, fattening it up as I come back. They can be on both sides. They can even be up in this space through here. Because our goal is to fill space, maybe I could put a second set. Could even add one through the side right here, because I do have room for it. I could do another one right into that. And I have that blue in there, so it's just looking like a little bit of a different color. I'm gonna stick with that blue and come over to my flowers that aren't quite open yet. I'm gonna add their hats in. and their stem, and from their stem and their hat, I can go ahead and I can do sort of the same thing I did before, where I'm adding in these longer leaves, and I'm doing it with a little bit of blue. If the blue seems like it's too much, we can come back into the green, but it's just enough of a different color that it's helping pop away from that other green that we had in there. And so I'm gonna go ahead and get my side leaves in. Again, I'm filling space, so if it looks like they're gonna overlap, I'm trying to kind of move it so it doesn't quite overlap, because I want to have sort of this liney look. And so I'm going to come down here, I'm going to do my little guy. I don't have a lot of room, so I can put a little leaf in. I could even put a leaf up into that space, but I don't want to cross over any of the things I already have. And so with this one, my last one right here, same thing. I got my stem coming down. I do have room, but I'm a leaf coming out here, but I don't quite have enough room to put a leaf going in any of the other direction. And so I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to start to focus on my other ones. My other flowers need stems. So I'm going to bring some of that blue into the green just to kind of change the color of it. And I'm going to start to work on my flowers on the left-hand side. So I can go up to my tallest flower, can bring my stem coming down. My stem is going to need to have leaves coming off of it. And so I can get some leaves coming off. This is where like maybe it does not gonna look exactly like mine. It's more about filling the space. If you have a little bit of space over here to bring a leaf out into, then you wanna do that. I think I have a little bit more. I can add another one right here. And then I'm gonna leave it and come to my sideways flower. He's gonna need to have some leaves come off of his. Maybe they change the shape just a little bit because it is a different flower. But again, I'm trying not to overlap at all. So if it's coming close, I'm just adjusting. So maybe I get a third one, but he's gonna be a little guy right there. And then I'm gonna move over to the right-hand side and do the same thing. I'm kind of keeping my similar color, because again, these are about the same flowers. And I'm adding in my leaves, my greenery. With these guys, you could add a little bit of yellow in if it seems like it's taking up a lot of space, a lot of green. We could add in another color to kind of break it up. So I can brush in a little bit of yellow to get it to pop a little bit more. And then I'm going to keep working my way over. I'm going to do my bellflower. I'm trying to overlap my bellflower right onto the white that I started with. So it's following the same path. Once I have him in, I can keep working down. This one's gonna need to have some space filled. And I might have some leaves and spaces that I don't quite have on the original example. And so that's okay. All I wanna make sure I'm doing is I'm filling every kind of nook that there is, especially down at the bottom, with some sort of greenery. And so like right here, he can have his stem. He's gonna need to have another leaf come out, another green. I might put another one right there just so it has something kind of filling in. And I could paint back through to these guys. Now that they're starting to dry, they might need a little bit of a second coat. And I'm gonna keep working over to the left. And so especially right here, this is all black. I need to add something to it to kind of break it up. And again, they don't have to even be connected. They could just be lines like I'm bringing in right there as if they're grass coming out of the bottom. Maybe I put another little one right there. And so that I'm trying to create this green space down at the bottom. Once I get all of the green in and I feel pretty comfortable with how much space I'm taking up, because again, it's just it's filler down at the bottom. Then the last thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the end of my brush, I'm gonna dip it into my white, and I'm gonna start to add in my stars. And so the stars up through the sky can kind of vary. There can be some skinny ones, some fat ones. They're up through the top. And then we sort of have this like pollen or something kind of whimsical that's coming off of our flowers. And so they're sort of stacked on top of each other. And so as I'm adding them in, I want it to be sort of more condensed or fatter at the beginning, and then it gets less and they get skinnier as they start to float up into the sky. And so I'm doing that by kind of keeping the doing the bottom part first, there's more paint on it, and so it's gonna look fatter. And then as I start to lose paint, that's when it gets a little bit smaller. I'm gonna trail it up into the sky. And I'm doing that, it's about every flower is gonna have this like sort of little section of white that's coming off of it. Kind of like the pollen is just getting sucked right up into the night sky. And so every flower that I have room to add this little set of white in, I'm adding it, and I'm letting it kind of come up into the sky so that it's also filling space. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish it off with the guys in the middle. They have a little bit of the pollen coming up too. And then once I get done with adding it through the white, that was my last step. Now I get to sign it, and so you can pick whatever color you would like. Come down into either of the corners and give it your signature. You can date it if you'd like to, and add any extra sort of thing that you'd want to do to it. And again, if you did have spaces that you wanted to kind of clean up, you could take black, you could clean up those spaces. So, thank you.